I'm curious, in the years of your marriage, were there many things you could not tell each other? Did you have a lot of secrets from each other?
Well, I didn't have any secrets from her. I suspect she probably had some secrets from me.
Is that true?
It was, work-related things, but...
Oh, of course. I'm not Leslie Stahl. I'm not concerned here. But there were things you couldn't tell him.
Absolutely. I was covert until the day that my name appeared in Mr. Novak's column.
And are there things today that you have not told him that you know?
Every once in a while, he'll read something. It's like, you didn't tell me that. I didn't know you were up to that.
And what if both of you got an assignment to assassinate each other?
Make for a good movie.
Yeah, wasn't that a movie? Didn't they do that already?
No, that couldn't happen? Okay. The book is called Fair Game, and that title is not something you just pulled out of the sky. That's the words Karl Rove, who was the president's top political operative, used. Those were his words when he said, going after you.
Two weeks after my article appeared, a week after Bob Novak betrayed Valerie's identity, Karl Rove called Chris Matthews and said, as Chris Matthews relayed to me, Wilson's wife is fair game. So it was a hit job.
Are you not upset, more upset that people are not more upset about this? It would seem that in the America I remember, if somebody said outing a spy was fair game. I mean, what if James Carville, who's the Democratic,
right?
He's the same version on the Democratic side as Carville. I mean, wouldn't Ann Coulter's head explode?
Oh, I think that's exactly right. And the surprise.
And can't we pray for that tonight?
The surprise to me over the last week that Valerie's been interviewed has been that people, the Washington press corps still tries to suggest that, well, isn't this just how Washington works? Well, when a senior White House official is convicted on 4 counts of perjury, obstruction of justice, for essentially having been part of a conspiracy to betray the identity of a covert officer, that is not the way Washington normally works.
Not that I remember. And Jack Kingston, you know him, he's a congressman, been on our show many times. I like Jack a lot. I mean, I always thought, as Republicans go, he was one of the good ones. He said, we have to find out whether she's a real spy or a glorified secretary. So let me ask you, were you a glorified secretary at the CIA in that 20-year career?
I was a covert operations officer, and I worked alongside my former colleagues in the run-up to the war with Iraq. We were going after the scientists in Iraq's WMD programs, trying to find out what was the status of their programs, what the research was, where were they procuring things. So, I wasn't just answering phones.
See, this is what I find so ironic about the whole thing, because when we're going to war in Iraq, in Bush's two-dimensional mind, he's saying to himself, 9/11, the Muslims are all stirred up. Saddam's a Muslim. If he gets a bomb, lights out. Right? So, basically... thank you. I would say I was summarizing his thoughts, but they're actually more complicated, probably, than his thoughts. But basically, what his obsession was is what you were working on.
I know,
right?
that's a terrible irony.
It is.
Because at the CIA, we always anticipate that maybe foreign enemies will betray us. That's, sort of par for the course. But how ironic that it was senior administration officials who did it in this case. And it's not an issue, it's not a Democratic or Republican issue, it's an issue of national security.
Yeah. And your book, speaking of national security, I mean, it's interesting the way you chose to print it. You chose to print it with what is redacted, which is a fancy word for crossing it out. I mean, there are whole pages like this, lots of pages where there's just nothing where you wrote, but the CIA read it first. That's what we have to do. We have to give it to the CIA, and they crossed it out. What does it say? What? You're not allowed to write it, but this is television. Television is holy. You can say anything here.
The agency has taken the position that I am not permitted to acknowledge my agency affiliation prior to January 2002, despite all the information that's out there and my background and career and so forth. And I can tell you what's underneath those lines has nothing to do with protecting classified information.
Right. I mean, I am assuming that you edited yourself, right?
I'm
you
an
wouldn't have
intelligence
written-
professional.
Yeah.
I have no desire to jeopardize classified information.
All right. And as far as the secretary thing goes, you had a fake job, right?
I had a couple fake jobs, yes.
Right. I mean, what was the name of the company that the fake company? Can you say that?
I can't
can't say it.
I
Are they
can't
still
say
in
that. It's in
business?
the book, and
Right.
I don't know what their status is right
What
now.
toll does this take on a family life? I'm wondering when you have to lead a double life. When even I'm guessing your close friends, people you had dinner with, thought you worked for Dunder Mifflin. But you really worked for the CIA.
I will tell you, when all of this blew up, Joe's brother called and was, very concerned. Are you guys okay? And his wife, my sister-in-law, had said to him, "Do you think Joe knew?"
But you can tell the husband.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did know.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew that part of it.
And you were no big liberals before this. Joe, didn't you give money to Bush in 2000?
I did. I also gave money to Gore. I'm trying to get that money back from the Bush.
No success.
In fact, if you're watching, send me my check back.
Well, what has this done to your politics, this episode?
Well, I think it'll be a cold day in hell before I vote for a Republican Party. But let me say this. I think that this brand that runs the administration and runs the RNC are not real Republicans. They are radicals
I agree.
who have taken the Republican Party and used it as a vehicle to impose their own radical solutions, which are not democratic, they're un-American, and they're imperial instead of Republican. And damn if they're not stealing the Treasury line.
And Bush the first, this president's father, called you a true American hero, did he not?
He did. I've served as acting ambassador to Baghdad in the first Gulf War.
Right. And he said, "I have nothing but contempt and anger for those who betray the trust by exposing the name of our sources. They are, in my view, the most insidious of traitors."
I could
Now,
have
this
said
is-
it better myself.
Yeah. Now, that's the T word. Traitors. Used by Bush's father, who was president. Do you have trouble with this word treason at all, as far as what happened to you?
Absolutely not. If senior administration officials had sat across at a lunch table with, let's say, hypothetically, a Russian journalist, what would that be called?
Right.
And bandied around my name. That'd be called treason. So why is it any different if it's brokered through an American journalist? It's not. It's treasonous.
So, if it is treason, who do you specifically hold accountable? Who is guilty of treason?
Joe and I, as you may know,
Joe and you.
No,
Not
we
the
have
answer I was expecting.
we have filed a civil suit
Oh.
that names Vice President Cheney, Mr. Libby, Mr.
Oh.
Rove, Mr. Armitage, and various John Does. Because remember, we were
But not
promised.
Bush.
No, but remember, there's room for that. But remember, during Mr. Libby's trial, we were promised that the Vice President, Mr. Libby, would testify.
Right.
And that never happened. So this civil suit is the only means to really get at the truth.
But the penalty for treason is death. Surely you can't, be suggesting that... we won't go there. All right. Let me ask you one final question. What shape do you think the CIA is in today? Should we be worried these are the people who are supposed to be watching our backs? Should we be scared?
You know,
Are they
there
doing
are
a job?
such fabulous professionals that are there. These are my former colleagues,
Yeah.
and they're working their tails off. What has happened, though, is so much politics has been allowed to seep into that sphere. And, of course, it distorts the mission. It undermines the product. And what does it do? It causes real violence to our national security. So they need to right this ship. They need to get the politics out of it. And we're not there yet.
Okay.
It's not just the CIA. It's also the State Department,
Yeah.
Uniformed Military Services, the Justice Department. The administration is systematically taking down this government of ours that has held us in such good stead for 230 years.
And let's not forget Blackwater. Okay. Thank you.